All right, everyone, we're going to get started today. Hi, everyone. I'm Partha Das, C2HR's Executive Director, and I'm excited to introduce today's HR Learning Series. We are able to offer free quality educational programs for our members thanks to the generous support of our 2025 sponsors. We appreciate each and every one of you. We invite you to join us on our next HR Learning Series on May 5th. Deloitte will present its 2025 Global Human Capital Trends Report. To register, please go to c2hr.org. Today's HR Learning Series will highlight practical steps for building your AI training. This webinar will be interactive, so we encourage you to post questions and comments in the Q&A box as we move through today's series. I'll now turn it over to Stacy to introduce the panel and get things started. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Jen. And thank you, Robert. Take it away.
Thank you, Partha. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking a few moments out of your day to talk about this very important topic. And so before we get started, I'm going to introduce myself and then my panel will as well. I lead the learning and development team for Warner Brothers Discovery globally, where we create the content, curate the content. We're responsible for the learning ecosystem, the infrastructure, as well as the AI curriculum. And this conversation today is about the learnings that we have discovered through this process of building AI curriculum in a global organization. And I've got an esteemed panel here that has also rich experiences around this topic. So I'd like to ask Genevieve to introduce herself.
Hello, thanks, Stacy. My name's Genevieve Beauchanty. I go by Jen. I am at A&E Global Media. I head up our L&D as well as talent management efforts here. And we're really digging into AI right now, so it's the perfect time. We have what we call our development den, and that is our learning focus per month. And next month, we're diving into AI as it's really the next frontier for us. So thank you so much for having me. And Robert, go for it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Robert Joseph, and I'm co-founder of Team Mindshift. And we do transformational talent and workforce development in the area of technology. I have my PhD from Carnegie Mellon in computer science with a minor in AI when AI was almost cool. And I've been a senior data scientist and then a director at Stanley Black& Decker and have been a university professor for over 19 years. So AI is something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm very passionate about getting people on board with not just using it, but using it effectively.
So one little known fact for this audience, Robert was actually on my dissertation committee when I completed my PhD a couple years ago. And I can't tell you the experience that I have was amazing because of him. Not only is he an expert in data and AI, but he's also a comedian, right? So what more can you ask when you're going through a stressful situation like trying to complete a PhD? So Robert, I just want to publicly thank you for all your efforts.
Oh, you're welcome. And how much should I make that check out to?
And there comes the humor. You knew it.
We're
We
gonna
have a lot
dive
of
right
fun.
in. We're going to dive right in because this is an interactive segment for our audience. And the first thing that we want to know from everyone is really a simple question that we want you to put in the Q&A box is, what are you looking to get out of this session? Like, we really want to make sure we are laser focused on helping you develop your AI training program. So if you have any thoughts, questions immediately that you want us to address while we dive into this topic, please drop it in the Q&A and we will get to it right away. And so, I'm sorry, Robert, you were going to say
Let me
something?
just let me just piggyback off of that because I've been in many talks as an audience participant, and I just want to emphasize, you guys, you're spending an hour with us. So make this hour worth your time and put in the chat what it is that you're looking to get out of this session, because we can talk about AI in so many different directions, but you've got three people here that have vastly different perspectives that can come together and actually help solve some of the problems that you're dealing with. So go ahead and put in chat, what is it that you're looking to get out of this?
So while everyone's thinking about that and doing that, I just want to give a little background for how this session came to fruition. And thank you, Jen, for joining us because Robert and I have been working on this for a little bit. And I'm so grateful to C2HR for thinking that our idea was a great idea and wanting to sponsor it. But since I've been working on building AI curriculum over the last couple of years for WBD, there has definitely been some situations that we've encountered. And Robin and I collaborated on an article that is on the C2HR site currently. And it was around how do you create a quality AI training program? I think that in this phase of AI where we are, and specifically Gen AI, people are talking about efficiency. Like that's the buzzword, right? We keep hearing efficiency, efficiency. But how do you get to that efficiency and what does that look like from a training process? And so that's how we came to this idea of let's have this conversation, just see where everybody is and how we can collectively help each other get through this phase of AI where we are. So right now, I think I see two things in the Q&A box. Someone said, looking for advice on outlines for business leaders, senior leadership who claim they may know about AI but cannot make the step towards changing their engagement, excuse me, and thinking models. Wow, that's a really good one. And I know exactly what you were talking about. So the next person said general curiosity about how L&D functions are leveraging AI effectively and practically. And then the other one says, I would like to understand how we can get people over their fear and encourage them to lean in. This is fantastic. Awesome. So let's dive in. And Robert, I don't know if you want to, we'll get to these questions as we go through the process of our polls or how
Yeah.
you would like to handle kind of what people have suggested they want to get out of this today.
I would say, we can handle some of them now, and then as we go through our conversation, we'll handle the others as they come up.
Okay,
But
let's talk about the fear one though, because I think that one kind of level sets everyone about a fear around artificial intelligence.
yes, I'll go and I'd first ask, what is it that people are fearful about? Because there are a lot of things that people can be fearful about. But one of the things that I would say to help people get over it is to give them something easy for them to do that is of interest to them. I have talked with a lot of different people, and they say, "Oh, yeah, I've heard about ChatGPT, but I've never used it." And I'd say, "Well, what's a hobby that you have?" And this one woman said, "Oh, I like to do line dancing." And I said, "Oh, ask ChatGPT about line dancing right now. Take your phone out and ask." And she did it. And she was like, "Oh, I know this step and I know that step." And oh, and she really became excited about it. And then I said, "Okay, now ask it, I'm at this level. What are some of the things I can work on, or what are some of the things I can do?" And so I think the best way to get people over fear is when they say they're fearful, right then and there, say, pull out your phone and let's do something.
Yeah, so it's really making it practical for people to remove that fear because the thing that I hear people talk about when it comes to artificial intelligence is a robot going to replace me? Is it going to take my job? And I think one of the most pointed comments I've heard to that is, well, if you don't learn about it, it's going to take your job, right? But if you do, then you're really owning your destiny and how you interact with AI and what that looks like from a career perspective.
Yes, and just to add to that, I think also having them look back at other shifts and changes in the industry. Social media jobs didn't exist 20 years ago. Influencers, that wasn't a category 20 years ago, but now it is. And so understanding you're just at the forefront of it, would you rather be ahead of it or behind it because it's happening either way? And really getting people to see how those transitions happened. And you're like, "Oh yeah, now it's totally normal to have a social media job." And really getting people to see it's just another transition. And
So,
it's just how do you transition with it versus against it?
Great point. Great
and,
point.
and to piggyback off of that, one of the things I tell people is that, I don't know how to drive a stagecoach, but that used to be a very
A
big
skilled job. That was
job.
a skilled job for
Yeah.
somebody, right?
And so, the stagecoach drivers that are saying, "Hey, I want to be and stagecoaches are still used. You can still go through cities and see people driving stagecoaches, but those jobs are few and far between. And so, the stagecoach driver that said, "Oh, let me embrace this automobile. Let me learn how to do practically the same thing, take people from point A to point B, but do it faster and more efficiently. Let me embrace that." Those are the ones that had the job. The ones that said, "No, no, no, I am going to be a stagecoach driver and I'm going to be the best stagecoach driver I can be." Those are the ones that did get their job replaced.
Yeah, in this case, the stagecoach is AI.
Yeah, or the automobile is AI.
The automobile
Stage,
is AI. Yeah,
stagecoach
yeah,
is business as usual.
right. So, Tracy, let's put up the first poll. We're going to take the audience through a series of questions which will help guide how we address how to build your own training program. And so Tracy has just put up the first one. And the question is simply, how prepared is your organization today for integrating AI into the workflow? And so if everyone will just kind of put where you are today, that's going to help guide this first segment and how we tell you about maybe based on where you are, what it requires to get started in this process. So
And
we'll give everyone just a minute to do that.
and while they're doing that, I want to also transition into the first question. And the reason I want to transition to the first question is because when I was at Stanley, I would see a lot of people try and embrace AI and create projects in AI. And they said, let me use AI instead of let me solve a business problem or
Mhm.
let me do something that has value. And that's what I mean when we're talking about stagecoach drivers. Stagecoach drivers, yeah, they can get you from point A to point B. But if you can get from point A to point B in a much more efficient, effective, and a much more ROI way, then you're going to go towards that way. And so, talking with the leaders in terms of, hey, you know, think about your company without cell phones, or think about your company without computers, and you're competing with companies that have cell phones and computers. That's the same kind of gap that you're going to see with companies that are using AI effectively and companies that aren't.
I agree with that. And so, Tracy, do we have a response yet for, oh, wow, look at this. So 8% of the audience says they're not prepared. 36% says somewhat. 40% says moderately. And then 16% says very prepared. That's great. That's awesome. So, for the folks that are not prepared at all, not sure where your company is on it, I know that a lot of companies are late adopters, right? They're waiting to see how this transpires with everybody else kind of jumping into the boat first. We do know that from a legal perspective, there's going to be laws passed in different states, right? That we're all going as companies going to have to navigate, which means that we'll have to retroactively go back and redo some things if we moved ahead. So for the ones that are not prepared, I guess my question for you would be, what can you be doing as an individual now to prepare, right? So for myself, I think I was ready 2 years before my company decided to push out a policy around artificial intelligence. I have been building my skills. I have been reading a lot about artificial intelligence, following people that were experts in AI. And it came a point where I had to be ready because then they came to me to build the curriculum, right? And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I figured out like this is what I needed to be doing when nobody told me what to do. So for those folks who says not prepared, make sure you're prepared because the opportunity is going to present itself. And then the question becomes, how prepared are you to help lead your company through that process? So for the other folks, Robert, or Genevieve have any advice on kind of based on, where they are in that process, things that they should be thinking about?
Mhm. I think you bring up a good point on, how are you prepared, where are you prepared, and the world might change. And so I think that's kind of understanding, like you're prepared for what the world looks like today. But if you're ultra prepared, then do you have other avenues that you can move into? And so I would say for those teams that like, oh, yeah, I feel like we're pretty good. are you looking at the future? Are you looking at what might come next? And how do you immediately adapt when ChatGPT comes out with something new? Are you ready to go for it? Because, 4.5 just came out after 4.0, and I'm sure 5.0 is coming right after it, right? And like, how do you get your teams ready to dive right into the new model? And that might mean a little bit of trying to kind of see the future and like look at your glass ball of like, okay, if I build my training in a way where it's easily adaptable to the next iteration, we can go faster. But if I've built it in a way where we're a little stuck, that's what's going to keep you behind. So I'd say, as you're building, make sure it's iterative, it's easy to adapt, it's easy to move forward because this will continue to move forward. It's not like a leadership training you can have on the shelf for a year and then you can maybe update it later. So I'd say that's my biggest thing is looking at it and making sure you can iterate quickly to get your people up and running with the new challenges that it'll bring every month.
Yeah. I think
Great.
the, I think the other thing too along those same lines is really preparing your people for the quick pace that is happening. And that means one, having conversations with them, saying this isn't the same as 10 years ago. Things have accelerated and you're going to need to get used to that acceleration. And that requires a shift in thinking. It requires you to say, okay, let me be nimble. Let me be okay with not having all the answers. Let me be okay with being a little bit unsure. Let me be okay with not knowing stuff. And let me be okay with learning it and learning it in a way that gives you insight into what might be coming. So, Chat GPT or any of the generative AI models generate things from nothing or can generate things based on what you're saying. And so, with that understanding, as these models iterate, then they're going to get better at doing things. And so just think about what are the things you can do with it. And when the new model comes out, it's like, okay, I see this new model is better in this way or in this area, and this is going to save me money or it's going to give me a return on investment in this way.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Tracy, I think we're ready for the next question, number two. And now let's talk about challenges. And I'll share that the challenge for me before we rolled out our AI policy was I couldn't get ahead of the organization, right? So, like for the people who said, "Oh, we haven't gotten started," I'm sure they can't get ahead of their organization. There's so much you can do if the organization isn't ready. And so one of the challenges I encountered was when we finally rolled out our AI policy around, obviously what employees could and couldn't do. The question for me was, what are we trying to do, right? Are we on the efficiency bandwagon? Are we trying to get everybody literate and build awareness? Obviously, there were teams in the technical space that were already using AI for certain tools and products. And so those people, for the most part, like they knew what they needed, but it was the broader organization that had my focus. And so for me, the challenge was around understanding what is the strategic direction for the organization when it comes to artificial intelligence? And someone asked this in the Q&A. They said, basically, it's senior leadership who claim they may know about AI but cannot make the steps towards changing their engagement and thinking models. To answer that for that person, what I did was, as part of my technology curriculum, I started creating content for senior leaders around AI. So, introduction to Gen AI for leaders, introduction to Agile for leaders. And so, there are these different concepts that I started creating just for leadership to engage in and building a curriculum for them. And so that got them engaged and thinking. And we started doing focus groups to say, what are you thinking about AI? How are you thinking about using it? What are some of the challenges you think your teams will encounter? So it's a two-way dialogue, right? We had to engage them to start picking their brains to say, how are you thinking about this? Otherwise, they probably would have never came forward to say, this is what the need is concerning this. And I also think that in some cases, leaders might think that they're supposed to know, right? And they don't want to say that they don't. And so I think if you make it a two-way dialogue and start putting something in front of them and engaging them, I think it's a good way to start to get their reaction and understand where the gaps are.
Yeah, Tracy, I think you bring up a good point. A lot of us are only learning 1 to 2 steps ahead of everybody else, and sometimes right along with people. And you're supposed to be the expert. And it's okay right now to say, I don't know. In 2 years, 3 years, you're not going to have that ability. So while you can say, I don't know, allow that to be part of the conversation because we are kind of all learning at the same pace right now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Tracy,
and
yes.
I would like to blend this conversation in with the other conversation about curation and delivery. And the reason I want to blend it is because in the past, some of the L&D courses that I've seen have been very, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and then you do this. And we can no longer have L&D be like that. What we need to do is create and curate courses that have people with the right mindset to be continuous learners.
Mhm.
So instead of saying, do this, do this, do this, give them context of what they're trying to accomplish, and then also give them a means for learning it themselves. And that's not to say that you don't give them any help, but when you're trying to create something for a moving target, by the time you create it, if it was very procedural, then it's going to be obsolete. And so you want to create it to be more conceptual, like this is what generative AI does. You know, it hasn't changed. There have been more things that you can do, but the concept of generative AI has stayed pretty much the same. And so now you teach people, how do I now use this model or use that model, or how do I learn about this? And that allows them to be continuous learners, and it allows the leaders to then say, okay, I don't have to know everything about this particular model. What I need to know is how can I use it in my uh, company, and then how can I direct other people that do know some of the intricacies of it, and direct them and give them the resources in order to move things forward.
Mhm.
Awesome. Tracy, do we have some responses for that survey? Okay, so budget constraints, yes, absolutely. Lack of expertise or skills. Resistance for change within the organization, yes. And then unclear strategic direction, and then other. I I'm aware of all of these. Obviously, I think, all of us are going through budget constraints at some point or another. So I'm very aware of that. And I've had to be meticulous about the vendors that I chose to partner with, that I could leverage them for multiple things and not just one thing, right? I had to basically stretch the dollar, if you will. And so, from a budget perspective, that was definitely um, something that was important for me to say, okay, I can leverage this vendor for more than one thing because I know the constraints I was under. So as you're thinking about building your training program, you want to think about how are you leveraging the content or the vendors that you're working with in multiple ways and not just for solving one problem. So that would be one recommendation I have.
Um, and I have something to say about the two top ones, the not understanding strategic direction and lack of experience. So lack of experience, and I hate to be brutally honest about this, but there's no excuse for people not to have experience, because we are now living in a world that experience is really at your fingertips. Yeah, and understanding is at your fingertips. As a matter of fact, you can use generative AI to actually ask, hey, I'm trying to do this. What are some of the things that I need? And a quick session with generative AI can give you some insights that before a Google search would take a little bit longer. And so you can use the tools to gain that experience. Now, yes, it takes time to do that, but generative AI can shorten that time. And so it's really about figuring out what it is that you want to do and then gain the experience for that.
So Robert, I'm going to
Yeah.
push back on that a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yes.
Because what you're saying, I absolutely agree with you. However, when you think about rolling out AI training program in an organization, a lot of times you don't have the space to explore and do, research and development. They want you to come with a solution, right? Number
Yeah.
one. Number two, if I were to go to ChatGPT and say, how do I create an AI training program for a global organization? What should I consider? Based on what it's giving me, I now have to use critical thinking skills to say, is this right or is this not right? And I'm not a subject matter expert in that. So I don't even know based on what ChatGPT is giving me, you know what I mean? Like
I
what am I
do.
Yeah.
what am
I
I
do.
agreeing to?
But
Go ahead.
I
I'll
would
let you answer.
I would say you're asking the wrong questions.
Am I? Okay.
Yes. I would say first off, you can say for my organization, what are some general practices that other organizations like mine are doing in order to bring AI into the system? And then you can start to build a model of what it is that you might need and how it fits into what it is that you're doing. Because you do know about the organization and you do know how to, you are the subject matter expert about your organization. And you use
Mhm.
that expertise in order to have, just like you would have a conversation with a subject matter expert and have that subject matter expert direct you into a direction. Now, once you start to get this understanding, then you go to other subject matter experts and talk it over with them because now you have a richer vocabulary and a richer understanding to have that discussion and weed out the things that are not working and the things that are working. So I'm not saying use ChatGPT or another LLM as the end all be all. I'm saying use it as a model for learning more about the subject that you're trying to learn about so that you can then go to those experts and you can then go to understanding what it is that you're trying to accomplish and have a much fuller dialogue. So that's one
That
thing.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Genevieve, how did you
Yeah.
guys
I
how did
think
you guys
it's
implement your AI training program? Like how
yeah,
did you get started?
Yeah, I think it's a balance. So I hear what you're both saying, and I think it's a balance between the two, but like you need the human component and the capacity to actually go out and train. And so the way we've looked at it when you're looking at like your trainers, do you want really technical people that you're going to teach to train, or do you want trainers that you're going to teach into technicals?
Yeah.
And the way we've done this, and so the people that were saying like we don't really have like a clear understanding of how we're moving forward is we looked at it from an audience analysis of like what do we really need to do? What's our learning analysis? What do we need to teach? And then we came up with certain classes, AI 101, prompting, GPT creation, Excel authoring. And we said, okay, who's the right people to do that? And we ended up splitting it up saying, okay, this is better for L&D to do and learn the technical skill. This has to be done technically, but we're going to walk them through how to teach it, right? Because a lot of people know how to do, but they don't know how to teach and they don't know how to get people involved. And so that kind of, not to put a lot of technical people are great at teaching, but a lot of technical people are not. So you have to then go into the organization and say, who do we have? Who can we leverage in this way to do the higher skill technical pieces? Who can be L&D that then can go out and learn about this, but both can teach with authority to the right audience. And so that's what we're doing. And we're really looking at it by piece, class by class, what actually makes sense. And AI is not going to be able to tell us that. You're going to be able to know your people. And so that's where it's a balance, right? AI can help you. It's a thought partner, but you need the balance of understanding what your capability currently is, who you have in the organization, and how fast you can roll it out. And so we've been doing that kind of balance that seems to be working so far.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Um,
great.
and let me pick it back off of that a little bit too, because um, I have found, and I'm finding it more and more each day, AI being a good companion for me to learn things very quickly.
Mhm.
Um, if I have a subject matter that it's like I'm a little vague on this, I'd like to learn it. Before I would go to Google and I'd search and I'd go through articles and I'd find stuff. But now I can go to Perplexity or something else and say, "Hey, this is a question that I have that I'm unclear about and what are some references so that I don't have to search through a bunch of articles and find that gold nugget. It actually gives me that gold nugget up front. And so what used to take me, an hour to do, I can now do in 10 minutes. And so it's the ability to get through the um, get through the chatter, get through the noise, and get to the exact thing that I want that generative AI has allowed me to do. And I do want to say one other thing and tie it into the strategic piece that people talked about and not understanding the strategic direction. And I think what they mean is not understanding the strategic direction for AI. And I think that that the is only part of the picture. And what you really want to do is understand the strategic direction of the company, which companies talk about all the time, and then figure out how AI or whatever other technologies out there matches that strategic direction. And that is where I think the disconnect is.
And also with the strategic direction, even if your company hasn't drawn a line in the sand to say where they are on AI, just take it from the approach of literacy, right? Which is awareness and having everybody literate about Gen AI, because that's where I started from as well. Before I got strategic direction, I knew that everybody had to be literate, and I think that's a good baseline to focus on and be able to measure at some point. So that's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
All right, so I think we're going to do our next poll question now. Are you good with that?
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. So our next poll question says, do you see robust AI training programs as a strategic competitive advantage for your company? I think that AI in a lot of ways can be hype. And Robert, you sent me this article that I just thought was fantastic, where these researchers wanted to understand who was just talking AI and who was actually putting their money where their mouth was. And they did a fantastic job with the research because they looked at the leadership team's profiles on LinkedIn Learning. I'm sorry, on LinkedIn. They looked at the company's 10K annual reports, and then they looked at the jobs that they were posting, and they analyzed these three pieces of data to say who's actually implementing AI versus who's just talking about it from a social media perspective, right? And so I thought that was so informative because when you think about talent attraction and retention, people want to be where companies are actually investing in AI and they're moving the needle and they're progressive. It's really important from a development perspective. It's important from an attraction perspective, and it's important from just an efficiency perspective for companies to make this investment. So I think that having a robust AI training program is a direct result of where your company is and how they're thinking about using AI as competitive advantage.
You bring up performative AI. It's really what who's got performative AI and who's actually putting muscle behind it. And that comes up with a lot of social responsibility. There's a lot of companies that do performative pieces and then people that are actually doing the work. So I think that's a really good distinction.
And to carry that also more forward, training isn't something in a vacuum. And Stacy, you and I have talked about this. You know, if you do training and get people trained on how to use tools, and then you don't provide them with the tools in order to get the work done, then you're missing out. So when you're thinking about a training program, you also want to think about, okay, after they finish the training, are they going to be able to use this in order to make things better at the company? Or am I training them for them to leave and go someplace else where the tools are there? And so it really is about looking at it holistically. What problems are we solving? What ROI are we looking to get out of this? What tools are available for us for
Mhm.
the people to use? And how are they going to be able to use those tools effectively to make the change? Because the other thing is, when I was I've seen at other companies where they would solve a problem with AI, but it would be the wrong problem because either the problem was being solved in the wrong place and the person that needed that solution wasn't able to use it because the tool wasn't available to that person, or they solved the wrong problem and they solved it really well, but it didn't lead to the ROI that was needed. And so all of this has to go together in order to make it an effective program. So it's about an effective program, not just an effective learning and development project.
So while we're waiting for the results on the current poll that we have out, somebody in the Q&A said we haven't talked about uh, AI literacy versus AI fluency. Like AI is a broad term. And Robert, you and I have chatted about this before because AI is now like the catch-all, right, for everything.
It is.
Do you want to break that down?
Uh, sure. We people nowadays think of AI as generative AI, but it's a lot more than that. And it's really being able to emulate the way that people solve problems in a system or computer system. At least that's the way that I think about it. And that could be some of the vision stuff that's happening. You can do a lot with vision. Um, there's also text to speech, speech to text, those kinds of things. There's so many other tools out there. And so when you start to look at AI in general, you want to think about what is it that these different types of AI can do and what problems do they solve? And that's again where you can go to generative AI and use it as a thought partner to help generate ideas that you might not have thought of. But when you see the idea, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can pull that into this. Or oh yeah, I didn't think about it that way, and let me integrate that into what I'm doing. So, and then literacy and fluency, I think that really depends on who the people are, what it is that you're going to have them work on, and how much training do you need to provide them, or at least provide them with the ability to also be continuous learners themselves.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When I think about literacy and fluency, right now from a literacy perspective, I feel like my goal is to get everyone in the organization at a certain standard where they're aware and they understand what it is and they're using the basic AI tools that we've deployed in the organization. On that same spectrum, fluency is the other side of that, where I know that I have specialized tech teams that are working with AI already to deploy products and services. Now, as AI continue to change, now you've got to figure out what literacy is all over again, right? Based on that new norm that AI is going to bring in, and then what is fluency? So that's a dynamic, I think, relationship that's going to continue to change as AI advances. And Jen, you mentioned that earlier when you were describing kind of like where we are currently in this phase of AI.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. And I think I like to think about it like when I go to a country and I'm trying to learn a language. Literacy to me means like I know where the bathroom is, I know where the stop sign is. I can get around the country and I'm okay. Fluency is I can make jokes to people in their language and they get it. And I really feel like I'm now involved in that country. Think about it that way with your generative AI and AI in total. It's like literacy, I can get around. I'm okay. I'm not lost.
Yeah.
Fluency is I really belong and I've got it and I'm using it to my advantage. And that's the kind of difference between the two. But to your point, like Stacey, it's going to change in a month and you're going to go back to needing to regain that literacy because you now have another dialect to learn. So think about it that way. I'm just learning a different dialect and a different dialect and I'm now becoming, multilingual in the end, but you have to be ready to continue to learn those dialects.
I love that
I,
analogy.
I do too. I'm going to use that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love analogies.
Tracy,
Yeah.
what do we have for our latest poll? Okay, so most people said yes, it's essential for staying ahead, and we all agree. And then some said somewhat it's beneficial with further development, and then some are neutral. So yeah, that's perfectly understandable. I think we'll go ahead and jump into our next poll. And our next poll asks
Well,
around, asks the questions around how are you personally using it, right? Because I think that part of learning and being able to develop transferable skills on the job is what are you doing outside of work? And so the question is, are you using AI at home or are you using it at work? And if so, what are you using? And I think this is a good indicator of for this particular audience, how progressive are you in this current space that we're in? Because just from what I'm reading, there's a lot more advancement coming our way. And so we definitely want to be in on the ground floor and kind of building those general skills around using AI just to, like Robert said, gain the efficiency and not, have to build a car from scratch when we could just go online and order one, right? And have it delivered to the house. So,
Well, one of the things I wanted to say while this poll is going to, in reference to the other poll, is like there were a lot of people that said this is a strategic advantage. We had I didn't remember seeing the percentage, but that line was pretty long. Um, and so a lot of people feel that it's a strategic advantage. But when you look at the other polls, people are at various degrees of adopting it. And I think part of that is due to historically, change has been very slow. It's like, yeah, I can wait. I can see what other people are doing because they're not going to be that far ahead of me by the time I catch up.
mhm.
But we're living in a different paradigm, and that's what everybody keeps saying, but not everybody's embracing it. And that paradigm is things are changing very quickly, and you've got to, if you want to be competitive, you've got to up your game of change. You've
Mhm.
got to go from changing a sort of trot to now changing at a run. And that transition has stumped a lot of people. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to change so quickly because I might do something wrong, or I don't want to change so quickly because that might not be the thing that I'm going to be using right now. I would say change in the direction of things that can give you an ROI right away. And that might not be the thing that you eventually end up with, but you'll get experience with that. You'll understand where its strengths are and its weaknesses are. So when the next thing comes, you can say, okay, now I see where the holes are in that last thing. Does this fill that hole? Yeah, it does. Or maybe combine the two or something like that. So,
And I was just going to say, I think you bring up a really good point, Robert, that AI has been around for a while, but generative AI has put the pedal to the metal, right? And we're going faster than ever before. Think about QR codes during the pandemic. QR codes were around forever. Nobody ever wanted to deal with them. Suddenly, it was the only way to get a menu. And now everyone knows how to use QR codes. I remember my mom was like, and now she's like, no, I got it. It was like on. It's the same kind of thing with generative AI. Yes, it's been around for AI has been around for a while, but generative AI is putting the pedal to the metal and you've got to get on the train or you're going to get left behind because everyone's going to be using it.
So one of the questions in the Q&A that we haven't addressed is someone has a general curiosity about how L&D functions are leveraging AI effectively and practically. And I think that's a fantastic question. So from a practical perspective, well, so I'll take it in two ways. So one, my team was responsible for developing AI curriculum for the broader organization. Then I started to think about what are we doing as an L&D team to become more efficient, right, with AI tools. And so currently, from a practical perspective, we're using AI to help create some of our learning content. So to Robert's point, we're not starting from scratch, but we're using it as a thought partner to brainstorm with. And because we're a Microsoft shop, we use Copilot as one of the approved tools in the organization. Some of the other tools that I'm exploring with includes tools for video creation, uh, graphics, and other elements that we use to create, to put in courses or even to market the courses. So at this stage, I'm thinking about what can I leverage for the team so that they can do their jobs more efficient, right? So that's one part of it. And then we're also using AI for, I can't remember the name of the tool right now, but it basically does the voiceover for the content. I think it's Camtasia. I think
Yeah,
it's
Camtasia
Camtasia.
will do it beyond. There's a lot that will do
yeah,
Yeah.
voiceover
yeah.
and content, but to your point, Beyond, Camtasia, Synthesia, like they're all things where you can give it a prompt of create this video for me and it'll do it. And then you can say, I don't want that person to be a cheerleader, make them a firefighter. And within a minute, it's done. Like that's how L&D can leverage to do things faster because we always have a laundry list of train this. And we're like, great, we can't do it all. This can help us actually do it or even um, you've got, maybe the marketing team, you've got the tech team. Can you take the same training and slightly tweak them with AI so that they read better to marketing, they read better to tech? Same training, but you've just personalized it.
And also
Yeah.
local language. I forgot language
Yes.
translation, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Huge. Yeah.
The other thing that comes to mind too is that you're not giving up creative the creative process. You're actually enhancing your creative process, and that's the piece that helps. It takes out some of the mundane stuff. So, for example, I'm a programmer, and I needed to write some code just yet 2 days ago, and I knew what I wanted to write, and I knew that I could write it, but it might have taken me an hour or 2 hours. And I described what I wanted to generative AI, and I had a skeleton code that then only took me, 5 or 10 minutes to tweak it in the way that I needed to tweak. And so experimenting with these tools, and there's this thought about AI first, where if you're trying to do something, consult AI. It may help you, it may not. There was another coding that I was trying to do, and I tried AI, and I went down a rabbit hole and was debugging and doing stuff, and it's like, no, I need to go in a different direction. So it's not perfect, but it can give you a good foundation. And as you get more and more experience with the tools, you'll start to understand what are the things that it can do very well and what are the things that it might not be able to do as well.
Awesome. That's a good segue to seeing the results of our current poll. So Tracy, okay, yes, that's that makes perfect sense. I think I use all of these tools, ChatGPT, Copilot. I like Perplexity. Uh, I like the Notebook LM by Google, which is based on the Gemini model, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. Do you have any favorite tools, Jen?
I love ChatGPT. I also like Claude. I think Claude is really good for L&D functions. I will even just take the same prompt into five different and just kind of see what it gives me. Then I will take all of those and put them back into ChatGPT and have it synthesize. So
Mhm.
I feel like it gives me a less biased result as well. And you can really see, okay, five of these gave about the same answer on this. So we're probably pretty sure this answer is pretty strong.
The other thing that I've used it for in creating lessons is to give it what I've done and said, am I missing anything? I've said, this is who I'm trying to teach. This is what I'm trying to teach. This is the lesson that I'm trying to teach. What are some things that I might want to consider? And it surprised me a few times, and it said, "Oh yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let me integrate that." Or I've said, I understand where you're coming from, but that's something I'm making a conscious decision not to integrate in.
Mhm.
So it really is. I mean, if you want to talk about practical uses for it, you could have it review what you have and make it better. You could have it, you could say, I want to be an award-winning speech writer for thrillers. And so, in this role, please rewrite this script for me for teaching this particular thing, and just see what it comes up with. And for me, it's a blend of what it comes up with and what I have, and I blend it together, and it's much better than what it came up with or what I came up with.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll jump into our last poll question, and I think this question is a bit controversial and elusive for specifically for L&D, right? When we're talking about measuring. And the question is, what key metric do you consider most important when evaluating the success of your AI training initiatives? I have a lot to say about this one, but Jen, I'll let you jump in if you have some thoughts around like what, from your perspective, has been either challenging or you found success in how you approach measuring your AI training program.
Yeah, I think that really comes back to having clear conversations with leadership of like, what results do you need to see? And I don't think we do a lot of, sometimes we just create a training and we're like, we hope it sticks. And I think, Robert, you were talking about that before. Like, do you actually know what this training needs to do? And so I think that's really important. Like, if you need this training just to give people awareness of AI, great. If you need it to be something that next day they're opening it up and you need to look at ChatGPT and see usage rates go up, what's the percentage we need to land on? How does this look? And so that's it's harder to hit those metrics, but you have to have a really strong conversation with leadership of what do you want and what metrics are possible. Um, Learning and development is not a magic pill. It can only do so much. So the question is, what do you want it to do? And yes, this can do it, or this can't do that. But over 6 months of doing some of this other stuff, it'll get you there. So I think that's our biggest thing right now is trying to figure out what that is and what metrics it are. Right now, it's adoption for us. How many more people can we get to adopt it, use it on a daily basis? And then from there, looking at those adoption rates and seeing how practical is it for reducing costs, reducing timeline, and how do you measure those? What's the best way to measure that? Otherwise, you're never going to have those strong results to give back to the company. And I think every company is going to have a different reason and a different result they need to see to qualify that ROI.
Here's a thought. Something that you said prompted me to think about it also in these terms. You could have an AI literacy curriculum that says this is how AI can be used, and these are the things that AI can do, and train people on that. And then you can measure how many projects they now apply AI to that you've trained them on. And then when you measure those projects, then you can say how many were successful and then what's the ROI on those projects. So if you tie it into, okay, we're going to train you on this, we're going to tell you how to use it, and we're going to allow you to go and look in the company on where it can be used and we give prizes to people that come back with this is how it can be used. And my supervisor says, yes, I could have time to spend using this because I've made the business case for it. The other flip side is that if you're learning something concrete, before you even are able to get in the course, you have to have a project defined that your supervisor agrees that they will give you time to work on that will give some type of ROI, and so then you can then take the course and you are taking the course with the eye towards, hey, this project. So that project is the thing that drives your learning. And then that's another way of measuring too.
Yeah, no, that's great. So Tracy, do we have results for our last poll? Yeah, a combination of the above is where most people are. So improvement in employee performance, increase in employee engagement, reduction in training costs, overall ROI and business impact. Yeah, I would agree on the combination as well. And I think you both said it best. I think it's about practical application, right? What I learned years ago was the training is just the start. It's what's done after the training, right? And in my experience, people took training and then they figured they were done, but where's the repetition and how are you applying that, what you learned so that it does stick? So we're all saying the same thing here. I think it's how do we measure how people are actually applying that on the job, and then what is the ROI that we're getting as a result. And from an L&D perspective, I feel like sometimes we don't do that enough. Like we don't have the rigor to follow people that have taken the training for 3 to 6 months, right? To see how they're applying those skills and what's the ROI that's being invested. And so I do think that's an opportunity for improvement in some cases.
I just want to check with the people that asked the questions because I know I think we answered all of them, but not maybe directly. Are there questions that people asked that we hadn't answered? Because we want to make sure that we answer everybody's questions. And if we've answered it, but there's another follow-on question or something that wasn't as clear, also please put that in the Q&A.
So it looks like we've answered all of the questions generally. if there's someone that has something specific or wants us to
Yeah.
elaborate on something, we're happy to do that. We're coming up on 5 minutes left in the session. So this is for you. And we want to make sure that when you go away, you feel like you have gotten something tangible that you could then start to apply yourself. Absolutely.
And then I want to actually use this opportunity for two things while people are looking at that. The first is uh, developing a community of people that are AI in the AI conversation. And and so the speakers here are part of my community. And and so that community allows us to broaden the types of AI that we're exposed to because each person will find something new that the other person doesn't know about. It's like, oh, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? So with that, also, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love expanding my community, and ask me questions after this. Feel free to just reach out and ask questions, and the other panelists also, I think, feel that way too, because you know, my whole thing is that life is a team sport, and
Mhm.
we're all in this together, and so let's all
Right.
win together. So.
Absolutely.
Love it.
All
Yeah.
right.
No, same for me. Do that. Absolutely. Find me on LinkedIn. But you're right. We're all learning together right now. So let's learn from each other. Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Parthavi, I think we are about to wrap up this segment and wanted to see if there's anything we need to do before we toss back to you.
No, I want to thank you all so much for everything today. And if anyone has any other questions, oh, I think one just popped up in the Q&A, but I don't know what that is. Let's see.
Okay, so Robert just shared his,
Oh, sure, Jabba just shared us information.
Yeah, I don't know if that went out to
no,
everybody, um, but I don't know how to do that to everybody.
I can do that for you.
Oh, awesome.
this is great. I
Yeah,
enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed the transparency. I think we're all still figuring it out. And I love learning, right, in this type of environment, hearing what people's challenges are, hearing, what's working well. Jen, I applaud you because you seem to have a great handle on it. So I know you and I will be talking more. And then Robert, you're on my speed dial. So questions
likewise.
I have, obviously I'm gonna text or call.
Yep. And Jen, thank you for the recommendations of the two systems that I didn't know about that you told me about for creating content. So I had a chance to look at those, and they're pretty interesting. So
Yeah, they're fun. They're absolutely. I'm welcome to have any conversations with anyone, but it's been a pleasure getting to know you, Stacy and Robert. Like we've learned so much. If you can tell, we all like each other. We've learned so much from each other already. But that's the community Robert's talking about. Come be part of our community. We're ready to help each other.
yep, yep,
Well, thank you, everyone. I want to thank you guys, Stacy, Jen, and Robert, for sharing your insight today. And then we just, I think, quickly put up the SHRM CE for anyone who needs it. And we'll send an email for all of you who are onto a recording of this, along with the information in the next couple of days. But thank you all for being a part of today's HR Learning Series. Thanks, community.
Thank you.
thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.